So I go to another therapist, good guy. I just don't think he knew how to handle me and my aggression. And he said, man, I think your anger and your PTSD are so bad. I don't know what to do with you, and I don't know where to send you. But now I'm so broken, the pros don't know what to do. I'm on the verge of a divorce. My kids won't talk to me. I'm drinking all the time. And I'm sitting on my back porch one night drinking a bourbon. I'm on my school's website, and they have this degree for professional counseling. And I thought, maybe that will help. Maybe I will figure this out myself. Nobody else can help me. I'm going to go figure this out myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hebrews and Shebrews, welcome to the Life Podcast. Today we're talking to Dr. Trevor Wilkins, aka the Angry Viking Therapist. We met at an event called the Refuge Ruckus, and this was put on by Bear Independent, and it was a fundraising event to raise money for a ministry run by Bear or TJ Morris called Caleb's House. Caleb's House is a very important ministry if you haven't heard about it. What they do is they rescue kids who are being sex trafficked, and then they do the just as important work of putting them back together and taking care of them until they're adults, for years. And I've met TJ and I've met his team that he put together. He's hired very competent people, and the money is going where it's supposed to go. So it's a great cause. I highly recommend supporting it if you have tithe or offering. Now, as for Dr. Wilkins, we met there, and then he started telling me a story. Like any of our health or medical interviews, I have to give the disclaimer that I'm not a doctor or a healthcare professional, and this is not medical advice. So go and see your own healthcare professional. And then the last thing I'd say is if you enjoy these interviews, you enjoy this podcast, use your little finger and press the button that will allow you to like or subscribe or be notified with the bell, or share this with people. Tell them about the Life Podcast if you love it, because that will help us grow.
Katie here. One last note before we get into this episode. We know and believe and understand that God can heal anything, any trauma, any hurt, any pain, miraculously and instantly. And we know that he, I'm sure, has done that for people, maybe even some of you listening. This episode, however, is about the practical tools and methods, training and mindset shifts that he used to bring the Angry Viking Therapist peace and release from the trauma that he had experienced in his work. And so that's what this episode is about. Not so much the spiritual side of miraculous healing, but the practical side of how the healing might come for some of you listening, perhaps, or maybe somebody that you know. So with that in mind, let's get into the episode.
Trevor, thank you so much for being on the Life Podcast. I appreciate
it's my honor. Yeah, it's my honor.
It's good to get to meet you in person, man.
It's been kind of neat. I think I told you yesterday that we're speaking at the same event, which is how we got together this time, of course. And I'm sure we'll talk about the event and how we ended up here. But I spent most of the first day trying to figure out why I knew your voice. I was like, I know this guy's voice from somewhere. Well, then you talked on a microphone on Saturday. And I thought, oh, it's the podcast guy. That's how I know him.
It's that guy.
Yeah.
It's that madman.
Yep. Yeah, it's weird, the context, though. Like, I had to hear you in this kind of audio electronic sound. And I'm like, oh, it's the podcast guy.
So it couldn't be live interaction.
No.
It was.
Nope. I was struggling to figure out why I knew your voice.
That's awesome,
Yep.
man.
Yeah. Right.
Can
yeah.
you give us your personal story then?
I spent 15 years in uniform law enforcement, most of it as a state officer. And 3 years before that as an EMT. So about 20 years of service in public safety. Started very young. Started volunteering at 16, 17. Got my EMT at 18. Became a cop as fast as I could at 21. The college reference, I'll tell you about the bachelor's degree. I went to a Texas college where I'm from. And first year, miserably failed out. Turns out that I liked Texas girls and cheap beer more than I liked 8 a.m. class. And those don't tend to go together. So I failed out miserably. But in my opinion, I didn't need a stinking degree to go be a cop, which was my dream. So I turned 21 in law enforcement and had a good 15-year career. I have a lot of great memories, a lot of fun memories, a lot of things that other people have never gotten to do, chases and pits and chasing bad guys and putting pedophiles in jail and, lots of things that I can look back on and be very excited about, very thankful I got to do. But about 7 years in, and this is on top of lots of things going on, but the what I usually start my talks with when I talk to people about trauma and mental health is about 7 years in. I was coming home from court. It's kind of a day off. I'm in my uniform. I come home from court, and I'm driving, and the interstate ahead of me is completely blocked. And so I called Post or our dispatch center and said, "Hey, what's going on?" They said, "Yes, we have an injury accident up ahead, and nobody's at it yet." And they gave me a code that meant it was going to be a bad one. Like, the people are saying it's pretty bad wreck. So I get around everybody. It's just another wreck that I'm going to. I've been to a million of these in my career. I've been to thousands, if not tens of thousands of fatal wrecks, so it's just another day. And I get up there, and what I find was a lady had sideswiped with her Buick an 80,000-pound dump truck. So you already know who's going to win that battle. But it got worse from there. I've seen that before. So she goes through a guardrail, down a long embankment, about a 45-degree embankment. At the bottom of this embankment, she strikes a tree head on. Two things happen when she strikes the tree. The first is she becomes completely trapped in her vehicle. And I won't get too graphic with this, but the second thing is her car catches on fire. So we've got a pretty bad combination here. So me and a couple of truck drivers, there was nobody else there yet. Me and a couple of brave truck drivers, we went down this muddy hill, trying to get her out. We're not getting her out. She's physically trapped in the vehicle. So we heard her succumb to her injuries. It was a terrible thing. But to me, it was just another crappy thing I saw. And to this day, I don't have flashbacks or nightmares from that. I don't dwell on it. I don't get mentally or physically upset from that. When I look back, I realize, and that's when things started to change for me. I didn't change overnight. It took me another 7 years of working to be a complete mess. And one of the things we're doing really well, or at least better these days, is talking about PTSD, talking about public safety trauma, talking about what childhood trauma does to you. One of the things I think we screw up royally is we keep saying things like PTSD is when you go to a call or you have an event and you're never the same the next day, right? Which is true. You're not. But we keep talking about PTSD like, well, you can't do your job anymore. You're messed up. You're broken. Everything's broken. I worked for 7 more years. I was a disaster, growing rapidly the next 7 years. And the analogy I like to use is that I started out as this, poster boy state cop. I've got multiple awards for bravery in line of duty. I've got multiple awards for valor. I've got multiple awards for most felony arrest in my area. I loved my job, very good at it. I wanted to be the guy the Sarge could call and we got the job done, period. I like that. I like that mentality. So I enjoyed my job. I worked very hard at it. I went from that guy to the absolute worst employee you could have working for you. Constantly complained on, constantly in trouble, constantly violating policy. Nothing illegal or immoral, unethical. I didn't do anything to people, but definitely breaking policy, not caring, Become very lazy, constantly get in trouble for low activity, which was not me. Constantly ending up in the sergeant's office, and the lieutenant's office, and the captain's office, and the major's office, as becoming the guy that I would have fired as a mess. On top of that, my kids are scared of me because I'm angry all the time. My wife and I are not doing well. I'm financially in ruin because I'm not working extra. I'm not, taking care of things properly. I'm drinking all the time now to kind of deal with it. I hate my job. I hate people. I hate God. I was opposite of where I should have been. I was in a very bad place, pushing my family away, very angry all the time. Complete mess. Well, eventually, that turned into them ordering me to take time off, which now I know I'm not really sure you can do, but that I was Mr. State guy, and I'll do what the state says. I'll do what my supervisors say. So I took some time off, and like many places, when you're gone for 3 days, you have to have a doctor's note to come back to work because you're ill or sick or hurt. So I burned 7 months of sick time from January to June and went to multiple doctors. No MDs would sign for me to go back. No psychologist would sign for me to go back. No psychiatrist would sign for me to go back. No therapist would sign for me to go back. They didn't want their name on that because I was a mess. I wouldn't do anything about it. And in this time, the only thing I did try to do about it was At the time, my agency had a psychologist on staff, still does. Good guy, but that's who I reached out to. I'm the Mr. Tough, armor-wearing guy. We don't reach out for help. But I did. I was that broken. I remember the call. I'm sitting in my driveway sweating, and I'm a mess, and I'm upset. And I call him, and to no fault of him, I'm not going to fault him. He was kind of handcuffed or restricted what he was allowed to do. And he said, yeah, I hear you're doing poorly, but that's not really what I do here. I do more crisis stuff, like officers that have been involved in shootings, and that was his job. He said, let me give you a couple people that I think you could talk to. All right, well, that's strike one to me, right? I reached out. Again, by no fault of his own, he's a great guy. And that's strike one, though. So I went to a lady that he recommended, and I told that story of that wreck, and she cried, which it's okay to show empathy with your clients. I know that. You don't cry for them, though, right? So she was a mess. So now I'm the caretaker again, right? So that's strike two. So I go to another therapist, good guy. I just don't think he knew how to handle me and my aggression. And he said, man, I think your anger and your PTSD are so bad, I don't know what to do with you, and I don't know where to send you. Strike three. Not only is it strike three, but now I'm so broken, the pros don't know what to do with me.
He wouldn't even recommend you to someone.
I think he had no clue. I think he was a marriage and family therapist, which I realize is different now, but at the time, nobody knows what those letters mean. Behind somebody's name, you're just the pro, right? And I think he was just overwhelmed with me, which now I can see. Well, so the positive of that story, so I'm losing everything, right? I'm on the verge of a divorce. My kids won't talk to me. I'm drinking all the time. You burn 7 months of sick time. You don't have any sick time anymore. They don't have a job for you anymore.
This episode of the Life Podcast is brought to you by The Way documentary, The Truth, Reformation 2.0 Apologetics book, and Truth Tracks. The Way documentary tells the story of our movement. This is the story of people who were trading Easter ham for Passover lamb and Sunday church for Saturday Sabbath, all in an effort to live like their Savior. It dives into their stories through their own voices and into the history and theology that show how the church got to where it is today. The Truth, Reformation 2.0 is the only book of its kind, an all-encompassing theological treatise that answers every question a mainstream Christian might have about why you want to keep Torah. And finally, Truth Tracks are small comics, beautifully illustrated, that use stories and scripture to remind Christians that once we are saved by grace through faith, we are called to live and do the instructions of Yah, his Torah. If you want to learn more about any of these products, go to thewaydoc.com. That's theway, D-O-C, like documentary.com.
So I'm effectively fired. I watch my own cruiser drive out of my driveway, which is the only thing that I have skills for and that I've known. I have no degree. I have no other training. I'm already in a bad place. I call those my dark years. I had a couple dark years. And I've never struck my family. I've never been violent. I've never physically hurt anybody. Outside of maybe having to fight in law enforcement, but definitely some dark years. That's a very bad place. So one night, and this maybe is the positive of being the kind of person that I am, this type A, this armor-wearing guy, is I'd spoken about the pastor earlier, and one of his first sermons was, what have you not done? What have you not finished? You're making excuses. What have you not finished? God's called you to something. Why haven't you finished it? And I felt very convicted at that time. I need to finish my degree. I've got 2 daughters now. I need to finish my degree. I can't tell them to go to college and have wussed out myself, was my opinion. So I finished my degree. Criminal justice, not going to do me any good, but I finished it. And I'm never going to go to college again. Nothing to do with it. I hate the education system. I'm not a college guy. And I'm sitting on my back porch one night drinking a bourbon. I'm on my school's website, and they have this degree for professional counseling, and I thought, maybe that will help. Maybe I will figure this out myself. Nobody else can help me. I'm gonna go figure this out myself. So I go to college for a couple of years, get a graduate degree in counseling, become a licensed psychotherapist, start specializing in people like me. And I finished that degree, and one night, again, I'm sitting on the back porch having a bourbon, and because that's what we do in Kentucky, is sit on the back porch and have a bourbon. And I'm on my school's website again. There should be a theme here, right? And they have this doctorate for counseling, and I thought, maybe that will make me even better at it. So next thing you know, I have a doctorate in counseling, and I now own a private practice.
That is awesome. It's like you had to solve it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about now, I guess, how you healed, how you eventually realized that it was that event that kind of started to bother you, even though evidently you didn't know that for years?
No. And to this day, I'll even say that event didn't ruin me.
Yeah.
But it started this process of what I know now and can explain to people. For me, it was this, I can look back and see this rapid decline. But if you'd have asked me then, people are horrible, I'm horrible, the world's horrible, I take number 2 back. I don't think I thought I was horrible. I thought everybody else was horrible, right? I was righteous and they were horrible. So it became this very me versus them mentality, which if you're in a fight in a ditch with somebody who doesn't want to go to jail, it is a little you against them, right? That's okay. But my whole livelihood is becoming that way. And when I look back now, one of the things that I see is dealing with those tragic things. If I stop somebody for, say, reckless driving, okay, it's not good, it's unsafe, we need to stop that behavior. It's a ticket, it might rise to the level of misdemeanor, but I treated that internally like a violent felony. Not on purpose, but what I know now was the neurobiological things I understand about the brain because of trauma and PTSD, and whether that be from difficult events in adulthood or childhood, is that my brain was going right back to this traumatic fight or flight. So this traffic stop, which could be dangerous, right, if it goes wrong, this traffic stop to me was fight or flight. So did that affect everybody I stopped? Probably not. They just thought I was stern or not compassionate. But God help you if you disrespected me. And it wasn't about respect. I didn't demand respect. But God help you if you, as the person stopped, tried to make something, a contact like that, unimportant or ridiculous or disrespectful. Because in my mind, if I didn't stop you from driving recklessly, I was going to that wreck again. Statistically, that doesn't make sense, right? Not every reckless driver causes a fiery wreck where somebody dies. But in my mind, going to this fight or flight, this might as well have been a shootout for me. Not an excuse. I should have worked on that. I wish I would have caught it. But that's the progression I saw over 7 years, the next 7 years of completely falling apart, which you can see just kind of builds this mountain of negativity, builds this mountain of me against everybody. And then when you push everybody away and you truly feel alone, that's a dark place to be. You asked about the healing, There's a couple modalities I can talk about, things, but one of the 2 things that I truly believe, one is, and then I'll talk about the second one. One is, it's not what happened to us that's the problem. That doesn't cause us an emotion. It impacts us, right? We feel like things that happen to us immediately cause an emotion, right? You break up with me, I'm sad. You steal from me, I'm angry. The reality is, it's not the thing that happens to us that causes the emotion. It does impact us. We're not going to take that away. But it is our belief about what that meant that causes us an emotion, right? There is a space in between the event and your emotion. And that's the space where your brain decides, what did this mean? That's why different people can go to different things or have different things happen to them, and they have different emotions. And we're not saying cut it off or shut it off or be unemotional, but that filter is the problem. Right? That's one. 2 is the one that really started to make sense for the trauma side. The things that happen to us are important, but what causes our dysfunctional emotion today, so dysfunctional being anger, anxiety, depression, guilt, the hard stuff, is previous life events, which could be day 1 to yesterday. Previous life events that left us feeling helpless, hopeless, or not good enough. And when I first learned that, that's a model of EMDR therapy. That's one of the tenets.
What's EMDR?
So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a type of therapy that was created specifically for PTSD. Can be used for other things, but its golden standard is PTSD. I'll be glad to talk about that. It's a really, really cool thing I get to see. But that's one of the monikers of it. And when I first learned that, that's helpless, hopeless, not good enough, I thought, I'm going to have to change those words. I can't tell type A people that they're helpless, hopeless, and not good enough. Because let's be honest. There's a time in my life you called me helpless or hopeless in a bar, I might take a swing at you, right? I'm a man. I can handle myself. So I was going to change those, find some more creative words to use. But what I found over the last 10 years, the reality is when I say left us feeling helpless, hopeless, and not good enough, every person that I talk to goes, wow, that's exactly how I feel at my worst, right? Yeah, there's days I'm sad, there's days I'm depressed. But the hardest, the one that really kicks you in the gut, helpless, hopeless, not good enough, right? So take that. Many people listening or in my office or online will hear that and come up. They're like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. That's how at least how I feel now at my worst, if not how I felt in the past for these events. Well, go back to that fiery car wreck. For the first time in my career, even though I've done crazy high-risk things, for the first time in my career, I stood there feeling helpless, hopeless, and not good enough. And I wasn't necessarily. There's nothing I could do. Technically, I completely understand that there was no way to help her, including child victims I've been out with, including domestic violence, including victims of crimes, right? Or just car wrecks. Or I know that technically I cannot change that, and I'm not helpless because I can't. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to affect the positive where I can. I'm there to be the calm in the chaos. I thrived on that. But that day, when I think of that moment, standing there at that car burning up and hearing her, I think, I'm a piece of crap, right? That's what was hitting me. I don't believe that now because of the work that I've done, but doesn't it make sense that me standing there, supposing to be the hero, I'm going to go down there and get this lady out of this fiery car, and not for heroic measures, not to be patted on the back, but this is what we do. And I couldn't do it. I was blocked. A crane couldn't have gotten around. I know that technically. I helped with a fatal investigation. I know how she was trapped. You will never convince me we would have gotten around. I technically understand that. I felt like a piece of crap, right? And how does that not affect your life? Whether it be from childhood, whether it be a thing that's happened to you, whether it be a series of things that have happened to you, right? And when I started to admit that this feeling of helplessness, and start working on that through some of these modalities, through the actual technical part of therapy, changed my life forever. I have a different filter on life. I don't think I'm the best at everything. I don't think everything's happy. I realize there's bad people out there. The problem was my filter was so jacked up with negativity and anger and depression and guilt that I would have not have told you I was dealing with. I might have swung at you if you said I was depressed, because that's for weak people in my mind. When I finally admitted that and learned how to change that filter through some evidence-based, no-nonsense ways that I practice now, life-changing. That's the healing path for me, and that's what I want other people to get.
Was there something in your progression of learning all of this stuff, or a point when you realized, oh, this was it? Kind of a tipping point where you're like, one, this was it, and two, I need to do X to start healing?
There's two. And the problem with, and I don't know how to fix this. I actually teach at the graduate level as a professor, is one of my other things that I do for counselors. So I'm not going to tell you I know how to fix this. But one of the things that we do in teaching about psychotherapy, mental health, we teach you about it. We give you some tools. We teach you some modalities. And then, like many jobs, we say, okay, good luck. Like, you have a license now. And I remember graduating. I've got a doctorate. I've got a mental health license to talk to people. And I remember sitting in front of my first client thinking, I have no clue what to say to you. Like, I'm sorry this happened to you. Like, I had some life advice. Well, now that's pretty common. And what most therapists have to do, and this is what I don't know how to fix. I'm not going to say that I know better about the education system. What most have to do is kind of find their way. And they find different modalities, cognitive behavior therapy, or art therapy, or music therapy, or behavior therapy. There's a million out there. So I trained in one called CBT, which is probably the most popular, cognitive behavior therapy. I went to the Beck Institute, which is where it's created. I like to go to the source, learn from the source. And very good information, learned a lot about talking to people, but walked away from there thinking, I like this, but I don't think this fixes anything for me. I can see where this helps a lot of people, but this doesn't scratch my itch. So the first thing I started to learn is I researched rational motive behavior therapy, which anybody that works in counseling that's listening knows that's kind of the precursor to CBT. And I won't use his language, but Dr. Albert Ellis is who created it. And the first interview I saw of him was filled with cursing, and he's very direct. He's not mean, he's just very direct. Let's get to the point right now, let's get this fixed. Here's what's going on, here's what you need to do. And I thought, that's the kind of person I can learn from right there. I don't want this fluffy, make you feel better. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. It's just not me, right? I need a no-nonsense, evidence-based way to deal with this. Long story short, that's what started to change my filter. I started to train in this, understand it was my filter, understand how to affect that. So there's one. One of the big moments, though, for me was I'd been doing trauma therapy a couple years, I think doing well with it. And I had heard of this EMDR. You know, any profession that you're in, you hear of the upcoming trends. That seemed like a trend for a while. It's actually been around for a long time. I think the reason it's gaining popularity is for a long time, we didn't have war, or at least not long war. We definitely had soldiers that were hurting, military that was hurting, cops that were hurting, medics that were hurting. But, you know, after 2001, we've been in a sustained war for a very long time. So instead of treating people that had a deployment, a combat, which is very hard for them, I'm talking to people that have had 6 deployments and lost hundreds of friends and are suicidal, right? So we had to step up our game. I think that's why EMDR, in my personal opinion, gained more traction, because it's a great modality. So all that to say, so I looked it up on YouTube, and I saw some weird hippie lady waving her hand in front of somebody like a DUI test and asking them if they felt better. And I thought, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. There is no way I'm doing EMDR. That's ridiculous. In fact, I was antagonistic about it. People would call and say, it says you're a well-known trauma therapist. Do you do EMDR? Because they'd heard of it. And I'm like, absolutely not. No way will I do that. That's horrible. Come in and get some real therapy, right? Well, you know, path being what it is, spirit-led, or well, I don't know, luck. Probably spirit-led in my opinion. But, you know, I go to a conference with a bunch of hurting cops, and I'm doing my trauma thing and helping people, and I see EMDR used by a former cop that became a therapist. And in 30 minutes, he was doing what it was taking me 3 to 6 months to do with people. Really changing. Now I know it's neurobiology. There's a lot to it. So I decide, I'm going to have to at least investigate this stuff. You know, like, wow, that was cool. And it wasn't just a freak thing. It wasn't one person. It was helping lots of people. I was actually kind of mad about it, to be honest with you, right? So I look around and all these instructors, I read their bio and I'm like, nope, I can't do it, man. This is your prototypical therapist. I can't do it. And I find this guy who would eventually become a long-term mentor for me, named Dr. E.C. Hurley. Unfortunately, he passed about 2 years ago. He was a Vietnam enlisted soldier, came back as an officer, made it all the way to full bird colonel. This is somebody I got some respect for in title alone. Don't know who he is. And he owned something at the time called the Soldier Center. So once he got out, he was a therapist. He created Soldier Center. He was outside Fort Campbell. All he dealt with was hard trauma, soldiers dealing with death, you know. And I'm like, you know what? This might be somebody I can learn from. At least I can hear what he has to say. So I go to training. It's a week long initially. And I go in there and still a little skeptical, but willing to learn. I'll do what it takes to help my people. And I'm learning. It's brain stuff. It's neat because I like evidence stuff. It's brain stuff. It's neurology. It's not just, feel better. And, but you get paired up with another therapist to do this. And I got paired up with a master's student. She's never even seen a client before. And they gave her me, 20-year public safety guy with a lot of trauma. But you got to do it. So Dr. Hurley comes by and he said, didn't you say you were in law enforcement? Well, yes, sir. About 20 years public safety, 15 years law enforcement. He said, yeah. Give her like a 3 out of 10. I'm sure she's a very capable therapist, great person, good student. But at the time, she hadn't talked to anybody, right? So it's like, give her a 3 out of 10. Let's not scare her just yet. So I gave her something that I was viscerally angry about. Had to do with my leaving law enforcement. and I would see this group, and I'd just be so mad. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard, you think the airbag's going to pop out. And I would just lose it. I'd be sweating and angry, and we did EMDR on that. And 25 minutes later, I wasn't angry anymore. I was frustrated. I'm upset. I don't trust those people. I would not do business with them. I think what they did to me is wrong. But I'm just not pissed all the time anymore, right? And that was a small thing. That wasn't trauma. It was trauma, but it wasn't what people think of trauma, right? To me, it was just this thing I was struggling with. The reality is, I look back, because she kept notes as we processed through this, and I still go back to this day and read it, and it went from, I hate them, I'm angry, screw them, I hate them, to, I'm a piece of crap. That's where it progressed to. Helpless, hopeless, not good enough, right? And I'm not the guy, if you can't tell in this interview alone, I'm not the helpless, hopeless, soppy, depressed guy, right? I'll fight you for calling me depressed, especially at the time, right? I'm a man. Man, I was a wreck. And when it straightened out that overreaction to emotion, I was able to actually heal from that.
Can we zoom in on this
Yeah,
EMDR?
yeah.
What is, I know you gave us the acronym.
Yeah.
Tell us the acronym again, and tell us what this is.
Yeah. EMDR is very based on neuroscience as opposed to a talk therapy. The short of it is we kind of reactivate the memory in a controlled way. We don't want you talking about it. It's not exposure therapy. You're not going to tell us the story. We reactivate the memory. We provide what we call bilateral stimulation, and that helps process this memory. The example I like to use is that you probably drove here today and you weren't thinking about what to do if you got a flat tire. But now that I've said it, you know what to do if you get a flat tire. It's because it's stored over there in the place. That's a properly stored memory. Where do you put tragedy? Right? Is there a box for that? Is there a shelf for that? There's a couple of things that we believe in EMDR. There's a couple of things we've been able to prove. One of the things we believe, and we know, there's not a lot of brain scans you can do about this yet, is the hemispheres of your brain have two different functions. One's kind of, a neurologist would not like this term, but the logic side and the chaos side. The logic side is where everything's stored. It's what you pull from when you need to do something. It's what you just pulled from to think about a flat tire and that story of the time you changed it in the blizzard and the truck scared you going by, right? But it's over there on a shelf. The chaos side is today. It's all the incoming information. It's how you process quickly. It pulls from the left. So when you go to sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, your eyes are moving, hence eye movement, right? Your eyes are moving. You're not looking at anything. Your eyes are closed. What's going on is both hemispheres of your brain are getting stimulated. And the idea is that the memory that's when your brain processes the memory. It's when your brain puts things away. It's kind of when dreams happen because you might be dealing with it. You might have flashbacks because you're having trouble putting this away. You might combine the story weird because it's looking at the logic side about what to do about this story. Lots of things go on there. But if you can't get this put away, it's raw. It's a raw nerve. And if you ever fall and scrape your knee on the concrete, it's a raw nerve. You don't have to touch it to make it hurt. You blow air in its general direction. Hence the raw nerve of trauma, right? I didn't have to see a fiery wreck to feel that way again. I just had to feel that way again. Something would remind me of that feeling, that helpless, hopeless, not good enough. And then I would have very terrible reactions to it. Some people implode, some people explode. I got a lot of theories on that, but about why. So that's one thing that we know is going on. It's tied to, here's one thing we can definitely prove through brain scans. We've done it tons of times. Bilateral stimulation, whether it be eye movement, sounds, bilateral meaning both sides, tapping, physical vibrations. There's a lot of different ways to do it. What we do know for a fact is it slows down the amygdala. It slows down the fight or flight part of the brain, right? Give you a very simple, not perfect example, a very simple example I like to use. You ever get into a fight with your spouse and you go take a walk? Yes, you're getting fresh air. Yes, you're getting away from the situation. Those are all helpful. Guess what you're also doing? Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, right? You ever been doing something mechanical, doing something repetitive, and your brain's racing about what to do about a situation? And kind of by the end of it, and again, this is a very, very easy example, but at the end of it, you're kind of like, you know what? I actually kind of know what to do about it now. I don't feel so upset about it, right? And here's why. If we can slow down, if at the minimum, this is what EMDR is doing, is slowing down that limbic system so you can process a memory, you're able to face it without it being right here in your face, causing this overreaction. Some people will tell you it feels like it's over here while we're trying to process it. Some people will tell you it took it from here in color to back here in black and white. I have a very good friend that gives me permission to tell the story. He was in a very tragic incident where 49 people were killed. One person lived. And for years he suffered with this in silence, And what he'll tell you after EMDR, and again, he has permission for me to tell this, is it felt like it put a Snapchat filter on it. It's real. It's still a real thing, but it's just kind of over there, And that's hard. Can you sit and make yourself upset about it? Absolutely, right? But you've processed it. It's in the place it needs to be, so there is still some pain to it, but your brain is able to go, okay, I'm not a helpless, hopeless, worthless piece of crap. That was hard, and I'm gonna have to be resilient about it, right? And again, that's the neurobiological part that I love about EMDR is we're doing something that affects this reaction, this overreaction, this fight or flight, this get me out of here, this panic, which can be anger, right? This overreaction. It calms down or stops the overreaction to emotion so that now we can do things like rational motive behavior therapy, which is my other modality, and fix the filter now. It turns out the whole world isn't evil. There is evil. Watch out for it. Be prepared for it. Turns out they're not all evil. Turns out when your wife asks you to do something like the dishes, she wasn't saying that you're a lazy piece of trash. She was saying, will you help me and do the dishes, right? That filter gets broken. Of all this, the umbrella is the filter, right? Even think about childhood trauma. One of the reasons I specialize in adults with childhood trauma now is because that was coming into my office as a trauma therapist. And those present very differently. There's same reactions, same negative feeling, same not good enoughs, same triggers as today's trauma, things that happen today. But it presented very differently. I was actually having trouble treating it a little bit. We'd get into a good place, but I couldn't even kind of cross that bridge. So I returned to my mentor, Dr. Hurley, who I've done a ton of training under because I can tell you stories about why was the leading expert in military public safety, EMDR. In fact, he received the first lifetime EMDR Achievement Award after when they first gave it out. He was the first recipient. So very, very impactful, right? So I returned him in and said, Doc, I can't figure these people out, man. We're doing good. They're better, but they're not crossing that. They're not turning the corner. So I took a class from him about adults with childhood trauma, right? And in the first 5 minutes, I was both elated and frustrated. Elated because what he said was so smart. He said, the difference between adults' trauma and childhood trauma as adults is they have, for their whole life, carried an umbrella of shame and guilt. And I thought, that's exactly what I'm at. And until you get through that shame and guilt, you're not dealing with the trauma, right? Because now I know that I was 5, and I know that technically I have nothing to do with this. It was that person that did something horrible. I still feel like it's my fault. I still feel like I shouldn't have said something. I still feel like I should have said something. I still feel like I shouldn't have been there. You're 5, and they'll tell you, I know, but they still feel it. So until you bust through that shame and guilt, you're not getting anywhere else. So that was the elation part. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. I can't wait to start applying this. I was short-term frustrated because that was the first 5 minutes of the class and I got what I needed. Now I'm glad I stayed because I learned how to deal with those things, right? Obviously. But I thought that says it exactly, right? And this is coming from a colonel in the Army, right? A Vietnam vet, a tough guy, saying it to self-proclaimed tough guy, right? He's done some hard things in his life. And I'm not a soft guy. I'm not a soft pat you on the back therapist. I want to empower you, get you back to your warrior status. So I never thought that way, shame and guilt. But when he said that, I thought that's exactly the problem. How many times I've walked people from my wife is terrible, the world is terrible, all these terrible things they think about the world, which might be true, down to, through a series of questions, these interweaves and these kind of question spiraling that we do. And it ends up with, oh, that means I'm a piece of crap, right? And you just see it in their face of like, yep, I now see that's the problem, right? We're covering it with other things. But it always comes down to that. It always comes down to your negative belief of self. Helpless, hopeless, not good enough. And so, you started that with, what was the moment? That was one of two moments. The other one was kind of this rational motor behavior therapy, right? That changed my filter. It made me go, oh yeah, my thinking is screwed up. I have to admit this and fix this, which is a process. The other one was that EMDR, was that my brain going, wow, it turns out I'm not a helpless, hopeless, worthless piece of trash. It turns out I can be resilient from this, and it's still horrible what happened and the things that happen afterwards. But, oh, I'm not stuck in that anymore. So now I can process those things like they're supposed to be. So, and then that's how I would describe EMDR.
It's very cool that the reason you started studying this is because you needed to find a cure.
Yeah.
And nothing worked, but then finally you found it.
Yep.
Can you talk now a little bit about, okay, how that changed your life? Like, when did your life start to improve?
Mm-hmm.
Was it while you were going to school, or was it when you finally figured out, okay, this is the problem?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because in school, I would have thought it would have improved. I'm finding out the technical things. School for me was A to B. Got to get moving. Got to get this degree. Got to go help people. And like most things that you learn, whether it's formal education, whether it's, anything other than on-the-job training, really, any kind of school or education or reading a book, the philosophy is important. That's what I learned in school, is the philosophy, which was helpful, right? It just didn't teach me how to do it. And I think some of my students, where I'm a professor, say, I'm about to graduate, I don't feel like I know how to help people. I'm like, yeah, welcome. What none of us did, right? You got to find it, right? You got to find your way. Different ways to do that, right? But when I started to really grow was after school. When I started to really grow was me learning all this stuff. And like, it probably sounds very obsessive, but I will not highlight a book. I use a ruler and a red ballpoint pen to make a perfect drawn line underneath, because messy highlighters and messy underlining drives me bananas. It's just a thing. I like orderly. I liked the Class A uniform, right? I liked the campaign hat. I liked a clean cruiser, So it's probably just that. It's not really obsessive, or compulsive. But I would underline these things and think, man, this is my client. This is exactly what my client's doing. And then I'd realize, this is what I'm doing. Like, uh-oh, the reason it spoke to me is yes, because I'm otherly minded in my office, right? Of course it spoke to me because I'm going to go help people with this information. This is great. And pretty much every time I underline something, I think, well, I mean, it is me too, I was at a training one time at NYU, and it's just a lecture, and the guy was a leading pediatric trauma psychiatrist, leading in the nation, well-known, horrible speaker, the guy, so I won't say his name, but horrible speaker, just very monotone, very technical, right? And he's talking about a lot of this brain stuff, and the neurology part, and it wasn't even an EMDR thing. He was just kind of talking about, there's some brain stuff here, not just get yourself better here, right? And I remember sitting in the audience thinking, like, this is amazing. This is 90% of the people I talk to every day. And about an hour later, it hit me. Ah, man, this is me. Like, this is what's wrong with me. I was better, doing better, but it was the real, that's when I started to get better. When I started to realize that you can't just white knuckle this, right? I have this theory called white knuckling life, right? And a lot of people do it. Stop drinking. Just stop right now. Start working out in the morning. Start taking ice baths. Start all the stuff that people recommend. That's all good stuff. I'm not going to knock any of it. But if white knuckling it is all you got, you're not fixing the inside, man. You may be on a path to it. I don't want to knock any of those things. I get up early. I work out early. I try to eat right, But you're just white knuckling it right now. Do those things so you get some wins in the win column. Right? Absolutely do those. Work out, eat right, do what you need to do, study the word, right? But you also have to work on this inside, right? You got to fix this filter. And it was when I stopped white knuckling it, fix everybody, fix everybody, fix everybody, fix everybody, make my family better, make my family better, make my family better, make more money, and started going, man, my filter is screwed up.
What do you mean filter exactly?
Yeah, so back to that idea of between the stimulus and the response, or the thing, what we say in rational therapy is the activating event and the emotional consequence and behavior, is a thing in the middle. We think A equals C because we're taught that way and it happens fast, right? You break up with me, I'm sad. You break in my car, I'm upset, right? The reality is, it's your interpretation of what this means that will give you the emotion. Now, we're not trying to go to positive emotion about a bad thing, right? I'm not going to see a hurt kid or hurt victim or a fatal car wreck and think, this is great, right? That's ridiculous. I'm not going to think back to a tragedy in my life and think, no big deal. Yes, it taught me to be who I was today, and it's exciting. No, it's not. It's painful, right? I'm just trying to get from unhealthy anger, anxiety, depression, guilt to healthy negative. Still negative, but I'm just trying to get healthy. Sad, disappointed, frustrated, annoyed, upset, remorseful, nervous. That's fine. Go do that. In fact, there's a famous story about Dr. Albert Ellis, who created rational behavior therapy. And he's been gone about close to 20 years now. I've studied his institute. It's a great thing. And people would come in, and he had a very weird bedside manner. And I liked it, but most people wouldn't. And they'd come in, and he'd sit down, and he'd say, "What was your name, Luke? What do you want, Luke?" That's it. Right? No, where are you from? How's your week? What do you do for a living? So what do you want? What do you want to work on, right? And the guy would say, "Well, let's see, had a big fight with my wife last night." And he'd say, "Okay, how did you make yourself feel about that fight?" Because the fight can't make you feel anything. It's a thing. It impacts you, yes. How'd you make yourself feel about that fight? And the guy would say, "I'll be honest, Doc, I'm pretty frustrated." And Dr. Ellis, who just paid a lot of money to, would say, "Wow, you just wasted your money. Go be frustrated, dummy." You should be frustrated. You had a fight with your wife, you idiot, right? You should be frustrated. Now, what he's trying to get him to say is, "I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm guilty. Well, now we got some stuff we need to work on." But frustrated, it's not too bad, right? It's healthy. It's still negative, but am I really going to get you from angry to happy? I love fighting with her. Gosh, it just fills me. No, it's stupid, right? So what causes that? Your filter. Here's an example I like to use that kind of talks about the filter. So if I'm in law enforcement, when I was in law enforcement, and let's say I had to go arrest a shoplifter for stealing meat from a grocery store, right? And he's very forthcoming. He admits to it. He gives me his information. I still got to take him to jail. I don't have a choice, right? There's an arrestable crime. I got to take you to jail. But on the way to jail, this guy's just been really nice. He's not your typical cursing at the police or not wanting to participate or help or, fighting you. And I tell this guy, like, "Man, you seem like a nice guy. What are you doing? Why would you steal meat from a grocery store? You seem like a nice guy." And he'd say, "Well, to be honest with you, I'm broke. I can't find a job," which I know is not a good excuse, but my family's starving. I'm starving. I stole a package of meat because I'm an idiot. I still have to take him to jail. You can't do that. It's not a good excuse. But I don't hate that guy. I'm frustrated with him. In fact, if he gets out and looks me up, I'll probably try to give him some resources when he gets out. There's better ways to do this, man. Don't steal, but I get it. I might have done the same. I get it. I'm not mad at that guy. If you break into my truck and steal my iPad, I'm pissed at you. I'm angry, right? Still theft, right? Now, maybe there's an argument of personal versus the business, right? Just as an example, but I'm pissed at you. The point is, the activating event, the thing that happened, it's the same thing. It's theft. It's not good. How did I get to pissed versus frustrated that you did this, right? Now, I'm not trying to get from pissed to frustrated you broke in my truck. I might be pissed, right? But what's the difference? Guy number A from the grocery store, I said, "You know what? I don't think you should do that. I don't think it's a good idea. But I don't think this makes you a horrible person. I think it's a stupid idea, right? But I don't think this makes you a horrible person. I don't think it's the worst thing that can happen in the world. We can handle this. We'll deal with it, right? I can't demand you not do something that you did. And I'm frustrated or even feel bad for the guy a little, right? The guy that broke into my truck, you can't do this. You must not do this to me. This is the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. You're an a-hole, and I can't handle this." That's where my anger came from. Now, again, I'm very careful with this because I don't want the example to be, well, just think positive of them and it'll all be okay. No, forget that guy. He stole my stuff, right? But which one's going to serve me? Frustrated man, I'm pretty upset. See if I can find this thing, do something about it. Make good decisions. Angry, guess what you do? Angry stuff. Where do you think I got the nickname? Angry Viking Therapist, right? I'm very, very good at anger, right? It is my go-to. I'm much better at not doing it, right? I'm still frustrated. I'm still upset. I still don't love a lot of people that do things wrong to me. But there's the filter, right? And again, I'm careful with it because those are easy examples. Well, you don't understand what happened to me as a kid. You're right, I don't. But I do know trauma, and I do know the filter you have, and I do know it made you feel helpless, hopeless, and not good enough, and that your filter is to overreact to this, right? And these demands that you make. You must treat me with the respect that I deserve. How'd you make that happen? Because I was in a profession that wants respect. I think deserves respect. But I couldn't make anybody respect me. So what's the difference on the side of the road? Go back to this filter idea, right? You call me a stupid pig or horrible names, or you hate the police, or, they're disrespectful. I don't want that on the side of the road. I don't want that at a call, right? But I got two options here. Either I don't want you to act like this, and I'm pretty frustrated, and I'm probably not going to cut you a break. This might not go well for you. I might have to make a harder decision, right? And I'll write you my ticket or take you to jail or finish the call and I go about my way. And I just think, that guy's a jerk, right? And I'm frustrated. I didn't let him off the hook. I didn't say he was nice and misunderstood, right? I just said, I don't like that guy. I'm frustrated. I pull you over and you do that. And my filter is, you must treat me with the respect that I deserve or you're a horrible person. That's anger, right? Okay, so again, I'm not trying to go from angry to happy about somebody disrespecting me. I'm just trying to go from angry, unhealthy, to frustrated, healthy, so that I can make a healthy decision. Guess what? Your ticket just got worse. I'm not saying cops should do that, but is it reality? Yes. Hey, I have the decision here to either write you a ticket to appear in court or take you to jail. Guess which one's going to happen now? You're going to jail, buddy, right? I have the ability to help you in this situation or tell you to call somebody else. This is somebody else's job. I don't deal with families. Which one are you going to choose when you're angry, right? Again, it's not about being fake happy. It's not about being fake nice. It's about being rational. You have to use a rational filter. So first we might have to hit it with that EMDR to deal with the neurobiological part of it, the overreaction. Then we need to hit it with the things like rational motor behavior therapy, which in my opinion is top, or I wouldn't do it for this kind of therapy. And we got to work on that filter. Some things are still going to piss you off, right? But man, my life changed when I wasn't angry all the time anymore at everything and everybody. That's life-changing to me. The neurobiological change and the changing your filter will change your life.
What did your wife think? What does she think? Is she glad? I mean, what's her reaction? Or does she think you're the same? Have you changed? What would she say?
Changed massively. And the funny thing I like to say about that is that situations would happen when I'm starting to get better, whether it be road rage or something, feel like something did wrong to me or I'm upset or whatever. In the early days when I was starting to get better, I'd say like, hey honey, did you see that? Like I usually would have lost my cool there. And I've never laid a hand on my kids or wife, but I'd throw a chair or punch a hole in the wall or tailgate somebody or, stuff I'm not proud of, but it was. I don't mind admitting that stuff, right? And I'd say, hey, do you see, I usually would have thrown a chair across the room there. I'm doing good. And in the early days, she's like, thank you. I love that you're working so hard. I love that you're helping other people. This is better affecting our family. Thank you, right? Now, 10 years later, I'm like, hey, do you see, I used to lose my cool there. And she's like, yeah, you're better. We know. It's good, because she's used to it now, right? Like there are still plenty of days where she might have to throttle me a little bit because I'm not doing well, right? I don't sit here on this mountain of perfect, right? I'm just trying to make my learning curve stronger and not let my learning curve be this, just the straight line, bumpy line, right? So she loves it, of course. It actually interested her in mental health. She's a trauma nurse by trade, so she's seen a lot of stuff. She works at a level 1 hospital, so she sees everything, right? And for a while, she was actually interested in becoming APRN or advanced practice nurse to work in psychiatry. Life's kind of taken us a different way since then, but it even interested her going from blood and guts and shootings and to man, maybe we should be doing something about the way people see things, So I think she'd tell you she loves it.
Given her experience with trauma, did she have anything to do with you deciding to follow this path to heal yourself?
I think in her own trauma, there's one thing it benefited, which I'll say, but she was still in a place of dealing with it pretty well. She had way better coping skills than I did. She surrounded herself by better people than I did. One nice thing, this doesn't make it easy by any means when I say this. One nice thing about nursing is you've got some other people to talk to. If you're in the state police, you get back in your car by yourself. Again, I don't know which one's better. I don't know. But that's one thing that benefited her. She's a talker. She likes to talk things out. I try to be a good husband, and listen. And so she would still call me on my stuff. She didn't quite understand why I was so bad, even though she would see similar things. Where it definitely benefited me, and I got really lucky with this. I think this is probably what saved us in the long run, because she's a way better person than I am. She stuck around when she should have left. But she knew two things. She will tell you, I've heard her say this. One, I know that's not who you are. I know who you can be. I'm going to make you get better, right? And we're not going to sit by and wait forever, right? But she knew the kind of person I was. She knew the kind of person she married. She knew why she married me, right? She knew that I was a better person than I was acting. So that helped. But also, with her being a trauma nurse, what benefited me and why cops and nurses are attracted to each other, firemen, public safety, military, right? We all kind of run in the same circles. Yes, there's some geography to that, right? We see each other all the time in those professions, right? So we're not picking up people. They're not looking for a wife at church or in the bar. We're doing those, right? So, but here's the other thing that it benefited me is that she understood trauma. She understood dedication to work. She understood seeing horrible things. She understood shift work, right? That's not what saved us, but it was definitely got me a win in the win column. So she was willing to, I think, put up with it. I see so many divorces within public safety because they can no longer put up with it, right? And so I think her experiences helped in that way. It also made her push me forward. She never really gave up on me, which is awesome. For your helper, right? She never gave up on me. I'm sure there were times that she thought maybe she should, right? Because I'm a hardhead, man, But it definitely helped. Her being able to see that.
That's great, man. Hey, can we go back to the filter for a second? Because, all right, let's give it let's use me, I guess, as an example. Sometimes I will get mad at people when I'm out or whenever someone does something stupid, and sometimes I will yell at people or do something horrible like this.
Yeah.
How do you talked about changing the filter so that you aren't so offended, I guess, by a thing.
Yeah.
What are some practical ways to do this?
Yeah, it's a really good question because one of the things that people always ask me is, like session one, right? We explain some of the stuff. We're getting you started, hoping you feel better on the first session. And they say, Doc, what are some things I can do when I'm angry? And my first response, which I have to explain to people, is don't get angry, right? Because in my opinion, if I'm in the kitchen slamming cabinets because I'm mad, and you tell me to count to 10, I'm going down the hallway, slam the door. Probably twice, probably hard enough to knock the doorbell off the wall. I know because I've seen me do it, right? I'm not the guy that can just calm down. I don't care what technique you give me or magic or whatever, right? So the reality of that short statement is don't get to angry in the first place. Are there things you're going to be angry about? Yeah. I'm not the guy that says anger is always bad. Unrighteous or inappropriate anger is what's going to get us in trouble, right? If I'm fighting some guy in the ditch on the side of the road, which sounds crazy, anger helps, right? I don't want to do something inappropriate or hurt him more than necessary, but I can't do that calm. Right? There's probably some anger in there, right? I need that. I need that part of my brain to kick on. But throwing a chair across the room, man, what are you doing, right? And the thing about anger, and we'll go back to kind of your example, was I always thought that when I started this, I'd have to explain why anger was bad to type A guys, right? Because anger has served me in the past. And so I was like, man, I must spend so much time telling these guys that their wife probably made them come to therapy, which is not reality. Guys know they're hurting too, right? And but what I always say about anger is, here's where anger is dangerous. The anger that's dangerous is the one where you screamed at your kids because they didn't do something minor, and then 10 minutes later you're sitting on the couch because you feel like a piece of trash because you screamed at your kids again. And you're saying, why did I do this again? What the heck is wrong with me? Why can't I get on top of this? They don't deserve that. At the time you were screaming, you didn't think that, right? So I don't think that's the solution. I don't think the solution is like training your dog where you give them a negative reinforcement and they learn not to do that anymore. You have the negative reinforcement. If it was that easy, we just put the negative reinforcement in front of the action and you wouldn't do it anymore, right? Take like drinking and driving. Some people choose not to drink and drive because they know the consequences, right? But it doesn't work for everybody, right? Some people will go, I'll be fine, right? I can make it. I've done it before, right? So that's the anger part. So, okay, go back to when you're angry at somebody, right? Well, there's three things that get us the most in trouble. 3 demands. 3 irrational, which means not based on evidence, demands. I must do perfect, or I'm a piece of trash. You must treat me with the respect I deserve, or you're a piece of trash. And the world must be easy and carefree and give me what I deserve when I deserve it, or it's a piece of trash, right? Now that's very basic, but think about it. I don't think that we walk around all day thinking, I have to be perfect, I have to be perfect. We all know you can't be perfect all the time, right? Wanting to be perfect is not the problem. Demanding to be perfect, or I'm a piece of trash, is the problem, right? How many times has that turned into, I use this thing called the stub toe analogy. If you're walking through your living room late at night, your wife's asleep on the couch, you're trying not to wake her up, you're getting a late night snack, which she doesn't want you to get, so you're being quiet, you don't turn the light on, you stub your toe, right? Rationally, that hurt, I'm such a knucklehead, I should have turned the light on. Ouch, right? It's not good. Right? I'm not the guy that thinks like, I'm just so thankful we have good furniture. Like I'm not that guy, right? The reality is it hurts, right? How many times have we all turned that into, I'm so stupid that I can't even walk across my own living room. I can't do anything right. Here's another thing on the list of things that I can't do right. I'm such a piece of trash, right? We've all done it. Why? Now, if your wife woke up and heard that, she'd think, I don't think that's what this means. I think you stubbed your toe, dummy, and you shouldn't be getting a snack and you should turn the light on, right? But how many times have we irrationally turn that into a label of myself that I can't stand, right? Go to the respect one. You must treat me with the respect I deserve, or you're a piece of trash, right? I don't think we walk around the grocery store demanding respect from everybody, right? But when's the last time you got angry? Guarantee it had to do with being disrespected. You must not treat me like that. I shall not be treated that way. You must not do this to me. Even respect of self. I'm so stupid, I shouldn't do this, right? We all want respect. We all want to be treated like humans. We all want to be treated fairly. I'm not going to be nice about somebody that treats me poorly. But there's a difference between that and the demand that you must treat me with the respect that I deserve, or you're a worthless human, right? Here's the example I use, which is not fun for me to tell, but I think everybody identifies with it. So you come home from a long day. For me, it'd be a long shift, right? Come home from a long day. Wife's had a day off because she deserves it, and she's sitting on the couch and the sink's full of dishes, right? I'm not going to lose my cool over the dishes. Let's be honest. I don't think it's her job. I don't think I can do the dishes, but I've just had a long, stressful day of making decisions, and I look over and I think, and you're on the couch watching your 50th episode of Say Yes to the Dress or whatever they watch, right? So my first thought is like, it must be nice. But as I like to say, I go change out of my uniform, and I start doing the dishes because someday, I'm not going to start this fight. I'm going to do the dishes because one day I'd like to see my wife naked again, right? I'm not stupid. I'm not going to start a fight over this, right? So anyways, I'm doing the dishes, right? Back hurts, been stressed all day, don't even have a shower yet. And what am I thinking? Some pretty dark thoughts, right? I don't love this, but I use it as an explanation all the time. How many times have we been doing the dishes and think some really dark thoughts about that person? She's so lazy, I do everything around here. You might call her a name or two. Not out loud because you're not stupid. And you don't believe it. I don't believe that she's lazy. She's an extremely hardworking mom, extremely hardworking nurse, right? Great person. But in my head, I'm like, she's lazy. I do everything around here. This is BS. Shouldn't have to be doing this. My back hurting, right? And one day I'm doing that, and I think, what the hell, dude? Like, that's one of the coolest women in the world. I love that woman. You call her those things that I just called her, I'll punch you in the face, right? I'm not going to let you call her that, but I did it. Why did I do it? Because I hate her? Nope. Because I decided, look how disrespectful this is. I must be treated with the respect that I deserve around here. And because of it, she's a piece of trash. Now, I only did that for a second, but I still don't love the story, right? But everybody does it, so I'm willing to tell it, right? I didn't say this feels unfair. I wish I didn't have to do this. My back hurts. Maybe we should have a discussion about this. Maybe she's had a crappy day, right? My brain said, look how disrespectful this is, and I must be treated with the respect that I deserve, and because of that, you're a worthless human, right? Now take that into traffic. My office in my pretty big city is on the busiest road in the city. If I leave my office thinking nobody's going to pull out in front of me, nobody's cutting me off today, if you knew the road that my office is on, you'd laugh immediately at that. I'm going to be pulled out in front of. Somebody is going to cut in my lane. I'm not trying to be happy. You know, my wife is the one, God bless her, that would say like, well, maybe they just got a bad phone call and they're not paying attention, or they have a crock pot in their front seat, or they didn't see you. I'm not that guy, right? Thankfully she is. She levels me out, right? I'm the guy that says, that person did it on purpose. That worthless turd of a human being. Somebody's got to teach him a lesson, right? How dare you do that to me? Now, again, I'm not trying to change that into, it's okay, buddy, no problem. This isn't good. I'm not dealing with dangerous driving. I'm not dealing with rude people. I don't want to deal with that, right? But what did I deem in order to get to that level of anger? You must treat me with the respect. You must treat me with the respect that I deserve. You must not disrespect me. You did that on purpose, and because of that, you're a worthless piece of trash human being. Do I know that? Dude may save orphans on the weekends for all I know. Now, I have evidence that he's a crappy driver, right? I don't have to go, oh well, right? I could be frustrated, honk my horn, throw your hands up, whatever you do, right? But there's a big difference between when I would be that angry and 10 minutes later, that dude's gone. And I'm still gripping the steering wheel so hard, I think the airbag's going to pop out, and I'm sweating, and my wife is looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with you? And then God help you if the kids in the back seat say something. I'm going to explode. I'm going to be exploding dad again. All because some moron pulled out in front of me. I'm not trying to get to, it's okay, no problem, right? I'm just trying to get to rational. Man, you're a crappy driver, and I'm pretty dang frustrated that you just did that, jerk. Okay, go be frustrated. Throw your hands up, honk at him, whatever, right? 10 minutes later, I don't even remember it happened, which is rational, right? Again, I'm not letting people off the hook for dumb things. I'm not saying everybody's nice and perfect, and, you know, there are some crappy people out there, man. There are some evil people out there. Is this guy a worthless piece of trash because he cut me off? Even if he did do it on purpose? Oh, I don't like him. We're probably not going to break bread together, right? I'm not going to take you out for a beer and discuss your life, right? Maybe in this point of my life I will, just because I like hearing people's story. But is he a worthless piece of trash human being? Your label, your irrational label. Can you really demand he not do it? Is it the worst thing that happens, which we call awfulizing? This is the most awful thing that could possibly happen to me. Really? Is it? I can't handle this, which I call I can't stand it itis. These are all these broken filters, right? I can't handle that he did that. Wow, man. Like, you know, yesterday I dealt with a kid who was traded into the sex trafficking trade. And I'm not comparing you to them. Everybody's got their own story. But now you're telling me I handled that and I can't handle this? Come on, man. Are you serious? Right? Not fake happy. I'm not a smiley happy guy. Right? I have that nickname for a reason. Right? But, man, when that weight of anger and depression and anxiety and guilt was lifted off of me, different life, man. Different life.
So, okay. So back to me then.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the same position as you, washing dishes, whatever, I like your example of, would I let someone else think these or say these things about my wife? That's a good one.
Right.
And how do I not be angry then? You said don't be angry. Yes, You're right.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? And the count to 10 thing doesn't work. You never remember it.
Right.
You're right about that too.
Yeah.
So what is there something you can do to arrest yourself before you get to that point?
Yes, but it's not the one people like, right? Because what people want is, What do I have to say to make this stop? Dude, if you can do that, you don't need me. Just stop, right? You're good. Teach me.
No. Yeah, I'll try to stop.
Yeah, right. That's good. It's all done in hindsight, right? I have to go back and see those times I lost in traffic, lost it on my wife, lost it on and I have to go, then this is what we would do in a one-on-one session, right? I'm going to walk you through these interways. I'm going to walk you through this finding your inference chaining, we call it, is the technical term. I'm going to walk you from, he pulled out in front of me and he's a jerk, or she's lazy, or we always have this fight, right? I'm going to walk you from that to what the problem really is. Because is somebody pulling out, sitting here calm, right? Is somebody pulling out in front of you or not doing the dishes or being lazy or stealing money from you, which is granted not good, right? Is that the worst of the issue? That's bad, right? But that's not the worst of the issue. And let me jump ahead and I'll come back to this spiral thing. I truly believe that 98%, and I only say that for a margin of error, right? 98% of our mental health problems come down to not good enough. 98% of our mental health problems come down to not good enough, right? Even anger, which feels like you're not good enough, they're not good enough, right? The example I would use is, I work with people all the time. And individually, you just have to go back and realize that you were being irrational. You have those demands that fit those three, right? Those three demands that aren't really going to work, right? Everybody knows you can't demand the world be a certain way. You don't get what you deserve, right? So going back and looking at those, if that works, some people need a little more. I needed more. It wasn't just enough to do that, right? In that, okay, so, and I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but just watch this chain instead of kind of working through the questions, which I would let you answer normally, right? I worked with a gentleman not too long ago, and he said, it just makes me so angry when the kids don't listen. He's a former military guy. He's pretty type A anyway, right? Add on top of this that we're taught, in public safety and military and in some families, if something goes wrong, somebody may die, right? So you have in your brain, somebody may get killed if this doesn't go right. That's correct for pursuits and shootings and combat and life-saving things and being fit, and that is true. Is it really true that if your kids didn't clean the room, you told them to, which they should do because it's respectful and you're the dad, right? That somebody's going to die? No, but your brain went there, right? Maybe not those words, but your brain went there, right? So here's a gentleman who is, let's add that on top of this chain, right? Here's a gentleman that said, I just lose it, and then I lose it with my wife, and then she's mad at me, and I feel terrible, and I storm off, and I go to the bar, and I don't come back for hours, and that's how I deal with it. All right. So what is the worst part about the fact that your kids didn't listen to you? Well, they should. Okay, all right, we can debate that, but okay, all right. So they didn't listen to you. What's the worst thing about that? What is so bad? It's not good. We're not trying to make it good. We need to affect that. I'm the parent. I'm going to make this happen, right? What is the worst part about them not listening to you? Well, what if they don't listen to me when they're running in the street, though? Like somebody could get hurt. Okay, all right. I see the logic there, right? What's the worst part about the fact that they could get hurt if they don't listen? Wow, I don't feel good. I mean, I'm the protector. I'm the protector of the family. They need to listen, so they know to listen. Okay, there's some logic there, right? What's the worst part about the fact that they don't listen and they could get hurt? Well, that means I didn't protect them. Yeah. What does it mean if you don't protect them? I'm a piece of crap father. There's your emotion. It's not that the kids won't listen. The kids not listening is a pain in the ass. The kids not listening is a logistical problem. The kids not listening could be an emotional problem. Hey, this isn't good, and you get on top of this, right? How many times have we seen the unruly kid at Walmart, and we're like, God, I wish his parents would have punished him more, right? It could be a problem, right? But because your kids won't listen and clean the room and they're arguing, and you're conscious, whether it be subconscious or you didn't get this far consciously, it means you're a piece of crap dad. That's worth reacting to, right? Now, are you? Probably not. But you went there, right? It's that overreaction. It's that filter. Not the filter of they have to listen. They have to listen. Or emotionally, this ends up as me thinking I'm a terrible father, right? Your wife, same way, right? Something happens, or finances, right? Finances is a big one for families, right? It's one of the major stressors. Well, nobody wants to be broke. Nobody wants to sell their house or their car. Nobody wants to feel like they're not doing well. Nobody wants to be in that stress, right? But what does finances really come down to for, I'm going to say most people. What does finances really come down to for most people? Well, I don't like this level of stress. Yeah. What's the worst part about this level of stress? Well, it means I'm not taking care of my family. What does it mean that you're not taking care of your family and providing? It means I'm a horrible father and husband. Oh, so it's not the finances, right? And we're not trying to be all Sigmund Freud going down to this moment of when you were 7 years and 3 days old and everything goes to that, right? But let's be honest about what the problem is. The problem is not the finances. That is a problem. That is a hard problem. That is a stressful problem. We need to get on top of this. But are you really depressed because of the finances? That's a thing. It is kind of depressing. It is sad. It is hard. It is stressful. Are you depressed because money's bad? You're depressed because you feel like a crappy husband and father who doesn't provide for his family. That's depressing, right? Now, the problem is getting there isn't always the fix, but getting there lets me start with, so prove to me you're a crappy father and husband, right? And this is all very quick. This happens over a period of time, and getting logistically, it doesn't always happen this easy. These are easy examples, right? Some people may be listening and going like, no, I don't think I'm a crappy dad and husband because of it. I just need to make more money. All right. You've got one in there, though, I guarantee it, right? Depressed, angry, anxious, guilty, right? Nothing's worse than guilt. Guilt is remorse, which is, I wish things had gone differently. I wish I'd have done differently. Guilt is remorse, plus I'm a piece of trash. Are you a piece of trash because you can't provide for your family? I don't think so. I think that's hard and it's stressful, and it is part of your mission as the man or the leader of the family or the wife. You got to provide for your family, right? We're not saying don't. But does this make you a piece of trash? Can you really demand that you do it perfectly? Can you really prove this is the most awful thing that could possibly happen to you? Can you really say that you can't handle this? None of those are true. It's where our brain goes, right? Watch that line. I'm not providing for my family. I must provide for my family. There should be no excuses whatsoever, which, by the way, is not rational because you're currently not, right? Like, it's not good, but must not, shall not, that doesn't work, right? You label yourself something irrational. I am a piece of trash, right? Now, you may feel like a piece of trash right now. You may even consider the fact that if you're not providing for family, you're not doing good. But when you said piece of trash, let's be honest about what that means. Always have been, are now, always will be. Prove that to me. Prove that to me. I know it feels like it. Prove it to me, right? This is the most awful thing that could possibly happen. Oh, this is bad. This stress, I may lose the house. I may have to sell my business. I may have to get a different vehicle. This is bad. This is bad. Is it the most awful thing that could happen to you? Bet not. Bet not. And we're not comparing traumas or stories. But is this the most awful thing that could happen to you? I bet not, right? We're not trying to make it good. And then lastly, I can't stand an itis, right? I cannot handle this. It's over. Dude, you just came back from combat. And you're telling me you can't handle this? This is bad. This is stressful. You're telling me you can't handle this? I bet you can. Handle it doesn't mean, the problem with the world is we think handle it means it went well. Handle it means you handled it. You lived. You got through it. Didn't kill you, right? I'm not trying to turn bad finances either because of somebody's mistake or my bad decisions or just can't make it or medical issues. I'm not trying to make that good. That is hard, man. But the depression doesn't come from the money. The depression comes from the fact that you've decided that you're a worthless piece of trash. And some people will have trouble getting there. Some people, I can walk them right to it. 4 questions and they're like, uh-oh, I feel that. Uh-oh, I'm there, right? It's the beauty of being good at your craft, being able to do that. Some people, it takes me a little while to get them there. But it's in there. I guarantee it's in there. I guarantee the not good enough's in there.
That is so interesting because I never would have thought to draw back anger and frustration and all these things to that as the root.
Yeah.
It sounds to me then like what you're saying is all this depression, everything else, it can all be drawn back to this root of that you're not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you're there, once you realize that, you step back like 10,000 foot view and you say, well, are you really not good enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you realize, okay, I'm not the worst person in the entire world.
Right.
Because it could be worse, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not trying to minimize the pain. I'm not trying to minimize the pain you're creating. I'm trying to minimize the pain you're creating, not the pain. It is hard, right? And once you find that out, the point, like you said, is not, oh, I do feel like a horrible husband and father, but I'm not, so I'm okay. You got that figured out, let me know. We'll write a book together and be rich. Now the work begins to fix the filter. Now the work begins to get you to, listen, I feel crappy. I don't feel like I'm providing. I don't feel good. I don't like this. I'm a little scared, right? Okay, yeah. What can you do with that? Put on your armor and your weapon, right? What can you do with that? Become resilient. Like, I don't know the technicalities of what's going to get you out of debt. I don't know. I've got some experience with debt. Maybe we can work on it. Maybe I can give you some practical advice. But the problem most people reach for is that practical advice first, right? Which is good, right? Practical advice is get up early, do your ice bath if that's what you're into, go to the gym, eat right, you'll feel better. Practical advice is, how about we get you a financial advisor? How about you sit down with another business owner and figure this out, right? Bear is somebody that I've taken advice from when it comes to business, because he's a little further in business, a little bigger than me. So that helps me. Cool, practical advice, great, do that. Get a book, learn from YouTube, get an advisor, liquidate your IRA. I don't know what you have. I don't know what you have to do to fix this. But you're not going to fix it if the emotional problem's in the way, right? You're not going to fix it sitting on the couch feeling like a piece of trash and sulking about it. And I'm not the guy that says just get up and move and you'll be fine. Oh, just action, man, action. Yes, action's important, right? And I don't want to steal his thunder. Famous podcaster Jocko, his big thing is like motivation's BS. You got to have discipline; it'll create the motivation. He's exactly right. So many people come to my office like, how do I get the motivation to work out, to get the better job, to treat my family better? You won't. Sorry, I have no secret for motivation. Get the discipline, yes. Get the discipline. Do the practical things. Right? I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym, but I sure like being big and strong. Right? I'm not 20 anymore. I don't love the gym like I used to. My motivation for getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym is I want to break the discipline that I've created over 2 decades, right? That's my motivation. That's simple. We're not talking necessarily about working out is not the cure to all things, right? How do you get the motivation to fix this financial problem? Not by being emotional. Cool. If you can listen to a motivational speech, which are great, I want to knock them. That's great, right? And it's the problem. Motivation is the problem with a lot of therapies. A lot of therapies will just try to convince you you're not bad. Hey, man, listen. There's a roof over your kid's head. I know it's hard right now, but you're going to be all right. You'll get a job. You'll be okay. There's way. You know what? You're right, Doc. I feel so much better. Here's the problem with this, like just making you feel better, right? Which is why I refuse to do it. If you go outside my office and you got a flat tire, everything I just said went out the window. Screw the world again, screw this car, just went out the window again. I don't think the reality is feeling better or just seeing the light or putting it in a different perspective. Perspective is massively important. You said it very well, that 1,000-foot view, right? How many times have you been in a bad place, emotional, angry, upset, depressed, sitting by yourself? I have those moments in my life, right? I'm not perfect, right? But how many of them can you look back on and you're in this like horrible place? It feels like the whole world's crashing in on you. And your wife or your pastor or your friend talks to you or, and a couple hours later, you're like, all right, you know what? You're right. I feel better. Nothing changed. The situation's the situation. What did they help you do? Go, all right, okay. I see this for what it is, right? I think of like a lot of therapy sometimes is like talking to your best friend. I want to be technical about what I do and get people moving very quickly. get them motivated, get them resilient, get them, the warrior again. But sometimes therapy is talking to somebody. Because how many times have you had a conversation with your best friend? All your best friend said was like, wow, and oh, and gosh, right? And at the end, you're like, man, I feel so much better. Yes, there's some cathartic thing to talking. Like, you're a journalist, right? Like, there's some catharsis to getting a story out there, right? Saying your piece. But we think out loud. Right? How many times have you had a conversation in the shower, to yourself in the car, to your best friend, and 30 minutes later, you're like, I know exactly what to do about this. Nothing changed. You just took the 1,000-foot view and went, all right, I'm going to stop being over emotional, right? And start being practical. Okay, great. Practical is the key. The problem is you will not get to practical until you're not over emotional. Whether that's EMDR because you're dealing with trauma, whether that's REBT because your filter's broken. If everybody that I talk to is overreactive emotionally, negative or positive, and they're not getting to the practical solution, they know the solution. What's your solution to your finances? Get a better job, get an education, stop spending money on credit cards, liquidate your IRA. I don't know what your situation is, right? But there's a practical situation. It may take a while, right? But I promise you're not thinking of it while you're emotional, sitting on the couch. And then we have this last piece. We have this things, meta emotions or secondary emotions. Angry about being angry, depressed about being depressed, anxious about being anxious, guilt about being having guilt, right? Guess which one's worse? The second one. If you're depressed, it's hard. If you're depressed about being depressed, it's impossible, right? In REBT, we tend to attack the second one first, right? Hey, it'd be great to work on this depression that you got going on, and we can see some things that are applying to it, but you know what's worse? The fact you're telling yourself you should not, shall not, must not, cannot handle being depressed. So now you're double stuck in depression or anxious about depressed or, any combination of those. But how many times have I had to lead people to seeing I can't even get to the practical solution because I'm so depressed about being depressed about not having the solution. What a horrible circle to be in.
Gosh, it's the dream within the dream.
It is. Yeah, the train wreck within the train wreck, right? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the process then, if I can try and break it down again, then is you need to be able to step back to the 10,000-foot view before you can then say, all right, I got to have discipline and make my plan.
Yeah.
Because first you need to realize there is a problem. The problem is I'm feeling like a worthless piece of trash.
Yep.
And that isn't entirely rational.
Yeah.
And because I know it's not entirely rational, now I can say, okay, then how do we solve this? And then you take the steps to solve it.
Yeah. The problem is the over-emotion.
Okay.
The overreaction to the emotion. The over-emotional reaction is serving you nowhere.
Do you have any more advice for people in a situation like where they're in this loop of anger? Or just like I mentioned, where certain instances where they feel, I suppose, disrespected.
Yeah.
And they fly off the handle. They do the chair throw.
So some awareness. Here's another brain part. This is a little more EMDR than rational therapy, but I tell this to people when they first come in my office, and I talk about this in speeches, right? And I'll tell you at the end why I think it's so important, because it'll make more sense. So when we look at trauma and stress psychology, we look primarily at two parts of the brain. The first is the prefrontal cortex. It's in the front of the brain. It's your thinking brain. It takes its time to make decisions. Not too worried about emotion, right? I call it the thinking brain. When you do your job, you're thinking of this. Even in some emergencies, if you're used to emergencies, you're thinking, nurses aren't necessarily panicking in emergencies anymore. They're just going through the motions, right? So you get this prefrontal cortex, just thinking brain. The other part is kind of a combination, limbic system, the amygdala, hippocampus, what we call the reptile part of the brain underneath that, the response. What a lot of people have heard termed the fight or flight part of the brain, right? And that's important, obviously. You need that for emergencies. If somebody crams their brakes in front of you, your thinking brain is thinking, oh, look, the brake lights are on, the distance is closing, we need to evaluate some options here. We're in trouble. We need the limbic system or the fight or flight part of the system to go, uh-oh, stop, right? We also need that for trauma, right? Gets us out of emergencies. Well, the good thing about this fight or flight system is the bad thing about this fight or flight system. The good thing is it's very strong and very fast. You need that. The bad thing is it's very strong and very fast. It will take over, right? Now, once in a while, heart racing, something like that, no big deal, right? But if that's a regular problem, it's a regular problem. And not only do we know this, but a couple things we found out was if you deal with regular stress and trauma, not only does amygdala and hippocampus change size, which is weird to see on a brain scan, but it changes strength, starts to take over. We know this for a couple of reasons. One is we took a bunch of 18-year-olds, they joined the military, we scanned their brain, they went to combat, came back, we scanned their brain again. What we just found out was the only thing working is that fight or flight part of the brain, for the most part. So that's pretty handy for cover and concealment. Not so handy for, hey, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? Did you pay that bill? When are you picking up the kids, right? Everything's an emergency. The other reason we know this is the reactions. So when this limbic system or the amygdala and this emergency part starts to kick on, this fight or flight, it recognizes an emergency. The amygdala is kind of like the smoke alarm of the brain. It recognizes emergency. It's going to give you some things that you need to get through an emergency. It's going to speed up your heart to get more blood, you breathe faster to get more oxygen. It heats up your body so your tendons and ligaments don't tear. It's like you stretch getting into a fight, right? Or into an emergency or a car wreck. You get a dump of adrenaline so you're stronger. It shuts off your digestive system because it turns out not so handy to use the bathroom in a fight or an emergency, right? And it gives you tunnel vision or honed your senses. That's what you need in a real life or death emergency. Well, what does an anxiety attack, a panic attack, or in my case, an anger attack look like? Heart racing, breathing fast, sweating for no reason, stomach's jacked up, shaking from adrenaline, and senses are messed up. Your brain's doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing it at the wrong time. So the first thing I want people to see is there's some science to this, right? We talked about filter, we talked about changing your thinking. But to go back to your point of what would you tell people, the first thing I would honestly tell people, again, is not taking deep breaths. That stuff's good. Grounding's important. If you can calm down, awesome, do that, right? We're talking about instances where you're not able to. The first thing I want people to see is your brain is doing brain stuff. Your amygdala is doing amygdala stuff. Your limbic system is doing limbic system stuff. You're just doing it at the wrong time. So what I want people to take from that, knowing that doesn't mean you can always shut it off, but it means you're not crazy or stupid or dumb or broken or messed up or can't handle it. Go back to that scenario I talked about earlier where you yell at your kids and 10 minutes later you feel like a piece of trash. I lost my cool again. I can't control myself. What's wrong with me? Nothing. You have a limbic system problem. You have a limbic system problem. Whether that's from trauma, whether that's an overreaction, whatever got you there, that's a physical problem that we need to get on top of, right? This filter's still important. We got to get to that. But if we're having the overreaction, you're not getting to the filter. You're not just going to decide not to be angry, right? Not to be upset. You're overreacting. You're stuck in this mode. 10 minutes later, you feel like trash or like you overreacted or you're not strong enough or not good enough. So I want people to see that your limbic system doing limbic system stuff. You're not crazy or weak or stupid or broken or messed up or can't handle it. You got a problem. This is a fixable problem. If you went to the emergency room with a leg that's deformed and swollen and there's a bone sticking out of it, they know what to do with it. We know what to do with the limbic system. We know what to do with this overreaction. It's not a cast. It's going to take a little time. One of the famous sayings that Dr. Ellis, who did the rational motor behavior therapy, says is, how did you get yourself overreactive? Practice, practice, practice. How are you going to get yourself unreactive? Practice, 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 right? You're stuck. You're going to have to deal with this stuff, right? It's not an overnight thing. So I don't want to say those things as in, hey, I'm going to give you 3 things to do and you can turn it off. But the first thing I want you to do is realize what's going on here, right? If you're dealing with, example, say these cameras, right, that you've probably amassed them over time, figured out how to do video, how to make sound better, right, when to do appropriate things. You know, we all kind of started out with the phone or the GoPro or the, figuring it all out, right? That's a learning basis for you, right? We had to learn to get there. How did you learn to do that? Practice, practice, practice. You didn't watch one YouTube video and have it all figured out, right? You got to practice it. You're going to have to practice, not the overreaction. But now you can practice it because you know you're not a broken piece of trash. You have a limbic system problem. You have a fight or flight problem. You have an overreaction problem. You're not broken or stupid or messed up. We kind of call this in therapy psychoeducation. That would be the technical term if I explained all that in a therapy session instead of what people may think therapy is, right? Talking about your problems. I always do this the first time, mainly because, and we can skip it if they've seen it somewhere else or heard me talk about it, but if they reach out to me. But we do this the first time because you may be amazed how many times people come back for the second session, and I want them to. We got work to do, knowing this isn't enough. But they come back and you're like, you know what? I've had a good 2 weeks because what you said made a lot of sense. And figuring out that I'm not broken, figuring out that I'm not jacked up, figuring out that I'm not fixable and that this is a brain thing that's fixable, I feel 10 times better already. I still got work to do, right? But I feel better already. And so that the long answer for that, what advice would you give for those that still go there? I truly believe that you're going to have to figure out this part first, and now you can do something about it. Because go back to that idea of the secondary or meta emotion, right? I'm depressed about being depressed. We got to fix depressed number 2 first, most of the time. That's a tenet that we tend to follow in rational motor behavior therapy. Because if you're just stuck being a piece of crap, you're just stuck being a piece of crap. Nothing technical I'm going to tell you. No advice I give you. It's going to change this right now. No 5-step program of what to do when you're angry is going to fix it. We got to get this under control. Then we can work on that filter, right? And sometimes, like, not all emotions are bad. It's okay to make decisions based on emotions, right? Sometimes faith really starts out that way. I'm lost. I don't know where to go. I find this thing that feels like it's right. Right? I feel like this thing makes sense. Now I have a path. Now I can be technical about this path, and it's serving me, right? The example I always like to give is like marriage. My sister is on her second marriage. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just I just want the timeline of this. So I had been married for a while when she got married again, and he's a great dude. I love him. Good guy. But to put the picture in your head, so I've been married for a while when she gets married the second time. And we're sitting in the audience, and I'm actually performing the ceremony, but we're in the audience, and, they're exchanging vows, right? And I love my wife, but we'd been married for a while, and they're exchanging their vows in sick and in health and in good and in bad and rich and in poor. And those are true. We all said them, right? And we meant them. And honestly, I had this moment of like, you kids have no idea what you're talking about. Because none of us did, man. Did I marry my wife because I knew that we were definitely going to get through everything in our life together, even the hard times, which we didn't even know what that meant, right? And then, yes, I felt like she was the one, and, I want to be with her for a reason, right? But why did I also marry her? Because I was massively in love with her, right? Now, 23 years later, I'm still in love with her. Am I googly-eyed standing on the altar, nothing else matters? No, I'm rational now. She's rational. We love each other dearly, right? We have the greatest relationship we've ever had after all those dark years because of the work we've done. But did I know what I was talking about? No, man, that was emotion. And that's okay. Weddings are important. It's an outpouring of love. It's showing people that you want to be together. It's contractual, nothing wrong with it. But we even make decisions based on good emotions that might not be the smartest decisions, right? How many people have gotten married and didn't last very long? It doesn't mean they're a bad person, but maybe that wasn't the best decision they made. Okay, live and learn, but it's not about having no emotion. It's not about always being centered. It's not always about taking on everything with no emotion. There's things that frustrate the hell out of me. There's things I love. There's things I dislike. There are things that make me feel depressed or anxious, or I make myself feel that way about them, right? But I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious. I'm not angry. I'm not guilty. I'm not ridiculously head over heels. Nothing else matters about one person, right? So emotion isn't bad. Rational decisions that cause a rational, healthy emotion are what I'm going for, right? So there's no 5 steps I can give you. It's recognition, right? It's movement in the right direction. It's rational thinking. It's stopping the overreaction, because your path to making the right decision is different than mine. I don't know what you need to do for finances or to better your marriage or your job. I don't know. But I can tell you, if you're overreacting, you're in trouble. Guarantee it.
So it's all about moving from this limbic system, fight or flight reaction to a rational other side of the brain reaction.
Yeah, and the limbic system I'm careful with, because when I got trained really well in trauma, like PTSD, what I thought was everybody would be coming to my office or reaching out to me online that had dealt with a very difficult trauma. They know their life is impacted by this and will never be the same. They can see exactly what it was. That's 10% of what talks to me. The other 90% say, man, I heard you talk. I like what you said, but I don't have a thing. Like, I don't have a fiery car wreck. I don't have a assault as a kid. I don't have a loss of somebody this year. So I didn't reach out. But what you said is what I feel like, right? And what I like to tell people is, one, you don't have to have a big T trauma, right? Big T trauma is the ones people think about. 9/11, car crashes, assaults, robberies, right? Little T trauma is adverse life events. Parents divorced. I felt neglected as a kid. I wasn't loved. I was bullied some, not to the point of injury, but I didn't feel good as a kid, right? My marriage isn't going well. I'm broke, right? Those are adverse life events, little T traumas. You put enough little T's together, guess what you got? Big T, right? And how many people can track that back to, oh, this makes sense. No, I don't have that thing, that event. But I can see where stuff started to go awry. I can see where I started to hate myself. I can see where I started to hate other people. Now that you talk about it this way, I'm telling you, that's 90% of what I deal with. It is a small percentage that say, well, on August 10th of whatever, this is what happened to me, and I've never been the same since. If you're having flashbacks or nightmares or can't stop the triggers, you can't stop thinking about it, it's a pretty good start on that event, right? But most of the people I deal with are just in a bad place. They feel like they can't dig out of that hole.
Maybe I'll make this the last one, and then you can tell us where to find you. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts, maybe two here, kind of double. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about taking medication for depression, pharmaceuticals? And then also, what would be your advice for someone who is taking those things and would like to eventually get to a point where they can stop? Is that even a hope that they should have?
Yeah. Seek a physician's advice if you're looking to get off of it. But don't be in the same place that you were when you started them, because now you're just taking away the one tool that you had, right? You're going to have to do the work. EMDR, REBT, plenty of other things out there that are helpful. These are what I use. This is what is effective for me, makes the most sense, this is what I use. I'm not saying I'm the only guy that does this. I'm humble enough to, even though, I'm a type A guy, I'm humble about, I don't think I'm the best in the world. I don't think I'm the only one. It's just my niche. I'm good at this, right? So you're going to have to do the work to not need it anymore, though. If you just quit, you just go back to the biological problem you had before, right? Some people will say things like, I didn't like it because it just made me feel more numb. Well, yeah, at the time you may have needed that, though, right? I'm not saying that's the fix, but at the time you may have needed to be a little numb about some of that overreaction. So now we can get in there and do the work. I think it's perfectly fine to want to get away from it. Please do it the right way. And if you haven't changed anything, don't get off them. Don't. You haven't fixed anything yet. They're not the fix. They're a good tool.
I think that's a huge point, because just thinking, I can grit through this without changing your life at all, then it's irrational.
Doesn't make sense.
No, you have to, like what you're saying, you have to get to that root of the problem and figure that out and change your life before you even consider anything else.
That right there, getting to the root, changing my life, changing the way I think, that was the cure. There were things along the way that helped me. That was the cure. I had to change the way that I think. Not fake, rational. I had to be willing to go, this makes sense. Whether it's scripture, whether it's psychology, whether it's therapy, whether it's food, nutrition. I have to go, I'm a big big gym guy. I don't want to just work out for workout's sake. I like watching the pros and going, oh, I see why they do it this way now. This makes sense. I like this, right? It's the same thing I do with everything else in my life. So go do that. And then maybe you can get off of it.
That's great. Would you like to add anything else at all? Say anything to anyone out there?
I think I may have regurgitated a lot of my doctoral teaching, so I think I may be out.
Well, where can people find you?
Yeah, so the easiest way through social media is either my website, which is theangryvikingtherapist.com. There's a Facebook of the same name, Dr. Trevor Wilkins, Angry Viking Therapist. Where you can get the most information, though, is YouTube channel, The Angry Viking Therapist. I try to put out stuff multiple times a week. I know people tell me that they get a lot from that. Maybe they don't need one-on-one. Maybe that was good information, like podcasts, The easiest way to contact me is through Instagram or the Facebook, but the Instagram is Dr. Trevor Wilkins, Dr. Trevor Wilkins. The reason I say that one is because I can put out the most information the fastest there, just because of the kind of platform that it is. I am on TikTok. I'm on a lot of social medias. I always say those are the quickest. YouTube is the longer videos. If you want to get some more information, the website is kind of found out what's going on, how to get in contact with me if you're actually interested on one-on-ones. I do have an app as well that people, you can't just download it. You do have to go to my website. There is a small fee for it. And what that app is, daily things. Daily, I don't like to use the word lessons because it's small snippets that you have to respond to, but it's daily things, daily accountability, daily check-in. And the lessons are the things that I'm talking about in a more detailed manner. And what I find from that app and why I've always kept it going, whether it's been super popular or times that it's been slow, is I see people get a little snippet and go, yep, that one right there is my problem. That one makes sense. Right? Now, maybe it doesn't cure everything. Maybe the response to that is good, but we do have some accountability. There's a community place there where people can jump on and talk. They're going through similar things, which I think is very supportive. There are some ways to contact me, have a one-on-one, consultation. You can find all that on the website. But I don't mind people reaching out, asking a question on Instagram, on Facebook, that kind of stuff. But that's where I'm at. I'm kind of all over the place. If you'll just search my name. In fact, my college students, because I'm a professor as well, like I said, and my college students, it used to be it'd take them about 7 or 8 weeks of the semester to find me. Now the first question they have is like, are you the Angry Viking Therapist? Like, guilty. Guilty.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this thing.
Thanks for having me. I love your show. It's not blowing smoke at you, man. I've listened to your first episode multiple times. Granted, it's got a friend of mine on it. That's fair. But you do such a great job, even if you don't feel like you speak much, of getting the right questions out. And that, man, when you get people talking about their craft, man, I love it. Love it.
Thank you.
You get some credit too.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you here and at this thing.
Absolutely.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
Well, then, until next time, sir. Thank you for watching. If you loved this interview, tell everyone about it. Hit the bell, like, subscribe, share, etc., etc. It will really help us, more than probably I know.